James Corden, arsehole, kicks off. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Do you have your arsehole-ometer ready? Is it there, available to count the number of arseholes that get mentioned in the course of this presentation about narcissism? If so, jolly good. Pat on the back for you. As you know, I analyse certain famous and infamous people to ascertain what they are, and many of them turn out to be narcissists. I let you know what subschool they are, and thereafter we may well return to those individuals for the purposes of enabling you to understand more about what those individuals are and how they behave, so that you can see their narcissism in action. By scrutinizing their day-to-day behaviors, we then see it through the prism of their narcissism. And this is done both in terms of showing the downside of that narcissism, but also in some instances the upside that can come from the wielding of that narcissism. As you know, I'm no great fan of James Corden, arsehole, but he provides a useful example for me to show his particular style of narcissism. And he's in the news again, reported by Jason Chester in the Daily Mail. James Corden, arsehole, confronts a British Airways employee after nightmarish flight from the Algarve to London is forced to stop in Lisbon. Well, what's this then? Is this James Corden, arsehole, being an entitled fucker? That he feels the need, perhaps, to issue the old, "Do you know who I am?" Is he being confrontational because somebody's not given him what he wants? Is he getting in somebody's face by virtue of looking to intimidate them for the purposes of the assertion of control? Is he standing on his entitlement to be treated differently to other people? Well, let's dive into the meat of this article and find out and see how this fits with the issue of his narcissism. James Corden, arsehole, vented his frustration at airport staff on Sunday. But onlookers insist the temperamental TV presenter was only voicing his opinion after enduring a nightmarish flight. Corden, arsehole, 45, was flanked by fellow passengers after landing in Lisbon, where he was seen confronting a British Airways employee during a turbulent trip to the United Kingdom from Faro in southeastern Portugal. But those on the flight claim he was speaking for all of them after the plane was forced to make an emergency stop in the Portuguese city due to a technical fault. It's understood that the plane struggled to gain altitude as soon as it left the Algarve and circled for 45 minutes, never reaching altitude before announcing an emergency landing. Vanessa, who was on the same flight with her mother and husband, told Metro of the mid-flight ordeal. It was something along the lines of, "Gather your possessions as best you can, take off your shoes, and when you're told to by the airplane staff, please adopt the brace position, and when we land, if you're able, please find your nearest emergency exit and vacate the plane." Basically, what had happened was the flaps on the airplane wing, which are supposed to go down when you're in the air, won't go down, which meant they wouldn't be able to raise them on landing. I'm not sure that's a particularly accurate description of how the way the flaps work, but that's by the by. Passengers were eventually told they would no longer have to assume the brace position, but spent 3 hours on the tarmac in Lisbon before the plane was finally taken out of service. Vanessa claims Corden, arsehole, who once fell out with the New York restaurateur over his alleged treatment of waiting staff, kept passengers entertained by posing for selfies as they made their way back to the United Kingdom. He walked up and down the aisles talking to people, assertion of control, receipt of fuel from non-intimate tertiary sources, and let everybody take a selfie with him, she said. Naturally, his grandiosity, his famous individual, enables him to pace up and down and assert control and draw fuel by being decent to them. "I made a joke," continued Vanessa, and went, "Oh, if we're all going to die, you could tell us how does the Gavin and Stacey Christmas special end?" And he went, "Do you really want to know?" And I went, "Yeah." He went, "I can't tell you." Then he said, "But do you want to know what happened on the fishing trip?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he was like, "I can't tell you that either." Naturally, it's understandable that he won't disclose those details, but it doesn't stop him toying with this passenger and delighting in being able to refuse her request for information and, of course, drawing fuel by way of her response. Vanessa confirmed the presenter confronted a staff member after passengers vacated the plane in Lisbon, but only because they were shepherded into the wrong queue. So then BA finally let us off the plane, she recalled. What's Mr. T got to do with all of this? We're in the terminal, and there was not a member of BA staff to be found, and they put us in immigration queues, and there was just no one there telling us what was going on. Well, fairly typical chaotic responses from airlines. The people he's speaking to in the picture are the flight staff on our plane. I watched him fist bump the pilot as he got off the plane. He said, "Thank you very much." Assertion of control. Benign method. According to Vanessa, the presenter was vexed. He was vexed because passengers had been directed towards the wrong queue, among them families with young children. She said, James was a club flyer and he stood there and was like, what about all these people who've got all these kids with them? Like saying that's not acceptable, it's not right. Passengers were eventually given a flight to London at 9:30 the following morning, and Corden, arsehole, was stood in the same queue as everybody else, doing the same things as everybody else. Corden, arsehole, has previously fallen foul of various public figures, among them Spice Girl Mel B, who branded him the biggest dickhead she's met. Naming her least favourite celebrities on a 2022 episode of The Big Nasty Show, she said, so there's a few. James Corden, arsehole, Jerry Halliwell, Jessie J, and me. Ricky Gervais has also been critical of Corden, arsehole, after the presenter used one of his 2018 stand-up jokes during a late show monologue. Character trait acquisition. Gervais tweeted a clip from Corden, arsehole's show, in which the host jokes about Twitter users getting angry about a poster in a town square about guitar lessons. But Corden, arsehole's joke, is directly repeating Gervais's gag from his 2018 Netflix stand-up comedy gig Ricky Gervais' Humanity. In 2022, Corden was branded a tiny cretin of a man and banned by the furious owner of iconic New York Balthazar restaurant, who claimed was the most abusive customer ever. See parts pass him. Fiery restaurateur Keith McNally banned the former Late Late Show host from his restaurants because of his treatment of staff. See parts pass him. Corden, arsehole, later made a public apology, false contrition, but denied the restaurant's version of events, denial, insisting he did not yell like crazy and claiming for the first time that the reason he was so upset is that his wife was given food she has a serious allergic to. I think he means allergy. The presenter appearing on the Late Late Show conceded that he'd been ungracious to the waitstaff of Balthazar, but tried again to explain himself. It then goes through what happened, which I've detailed in the past, regurgitating that information. Now, what's interesting here is that he's confronting staff with regard to the way that the people on the plane have been treated, which of itself seems entirely justifiable. This is an instance of where the narcissist utilises the truth. For instance, if the passengers hadn't been badly treated, a narcissist might rant and rave about it by virtue of a revision of history. But here, what he's doing is that he's using the truth as everybody else understands it to be, poor treatment and bad information provision by the airline, as a means to complain. In the same way, for instance, that Piers Morgan had a go about this one's wife. He was using the truth of her behaviour, but utilising it for his narcissism to assert control over her and nullify the threat to control posed by the fact that she ghosted him. As I have explained in my fantastic video, which I urge you all to watch, The Truth, the Half-Truth and Nowhere Near the Truth, the narcissist often utilises nowhere near the truth lies to control you, frequently utilises half-truths, taking a bit of the truth as you understand it to be and twisting it, but will also use the truth as you understand it to be for the purpose of seeking the prime aims. It doesn't mean that the narcissist is behaving in a virtuous way, because it's still a manipulation, it's still self-interest. So with Corden, arsehole, it's still about making him look good, making him look like he's standing up for the customers, making him, of course, vent his own frustration, notwithstanding those ridiculous shorts, for the purposes of asserting control over the flight crew and the airline staff. But the fact is that he engages in this behaviour, driven by his own narcissism, but uses the truth of the situation. His narcissism doesn't need to invent some perceived slight or problem. It simply seizes on the frustration that everybody else is utilising and allows him to use that to assert control over the staff, nullify the threat posed by the delay, and to draw fuel from their reaction. Thus, on this occasion, it would appear that although he is an arsehole, he wasn't necessarily acting the arsehole, but it still remains the case that his narcissism doesn't go part-time or shut down for the night. It continues, but it just utilises the truth in this instant. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.